Hey everyone, I'm Bill Hilton, and as you may know, I spend an awful lot of time making piano tutorials that I post on YouTube. I don't usually show my face. Usually my tutorials are just my red piano with my hands waving over it, but I'm making a special appearance today because I'm really honoured. Making Music magazine have asked me to make a special tutorial just for you guys as part of Making Music's Piano Focus Month, October 2019. So what I'm going to talk about today is a specific problem that all piano players face, and it's really difficult because sometimes it's a problem we don't realise we're having to deal with, and it can be really insidious and really difficult, but every single one of us has to get to grips with it. Let's just first of all define what that problem is. In its most simple terms, the problem is this: as piano players, we don't have to listen to ourselves. Now that seems pretty weird. What do I mean by that? We don't have to listen to ourselves. Surely we listen to ourselves all the time when we're playing the piano. We can't help it, we're sat next to the thing. To get to the bottom of what I mean by this problem, let's look at it from the point of view of another instrument. To start with, the trombone. Now let's say that I want to play a G on the trombone. Here we go, this will probably sound really terrible. There we go, let's double check it. Yeah, more or less. Now if you're a brass player, you're thinking, oh my word, Bill's intonation is really terrible. And it is, but I'm just playing to make a point. When I play that G on the trombone, I'm having to do several different things. First of all, I need to get the slide in the right position, which isn't always easy, but it's about there, it's just level with the bell. Then I need to form my lips into the right shape of embouchure and put them against the mouthpiece. And then I have to put the right amount of tension into my lips to get a G rather than a D or something else, and blow with the right amount of air. Okay, I sound more like a foghorn than a trombone, but you get the idea. All the time I'm doing that, I have to listen to the note that I'm producing to make sure that I'm doing everything right. Because if that note isn't quite right, if the tone is a bit wrong, if the pitch is a bit wrong, it means I have to adjust either the slide position or my lips or the amount of air I'm blowing or whatever. So there's a lot of thinking about the actual note when I play the trombone. What about when I play the piano? That's all I have to do. Okay, I have a certain amount of influence over things like the attack. Okay, but not really very much in the great scheme of things, nothing compared to the trombone. When I'm playing the trombone, I have to really listen to what I'm doing. The same thing is true on one of these. Now, don't worry, I'm not going to play the violin because it would sound pretty terrible, but think about what a violinist has to do as she sits on a chair trying to play a note. She has to get her finger in exactly the right place on the fingerboard. She has to bow it with exactly the right pressure and at exactly the right speed. She has to adjust her finger on the fingerboard if the note isn't quite right. She has to add vibrato. So all of the time, she has to listen to what she's doing, because if she doesn't listen to what she's doing, it's going to sound terrible. On the piano, all we have to do is press the key. What about on a fretted instrument like the mandolin or the guitar or the banjo? Surely things are much easier there because we have frets on the fretboard to guide where we put our fingers. It's not like the violin or the trombone where we've got slides and open strings and all the rest of it. But still we have to listen to ourselves. First of all, we have to listen to make sure we're in tune, and if we're not in tune, we have to get to work with the tuning pegs here. But we also have to listen to our intonation, okay? If we're strumming with our fingers or our plectrum, we have to hit with exactly the right amount of force. If we are picking out a melody, we have to think about things like vibrato and 101 other things. So we still have to listen to ourselves. On the piano, we can get away with doing much less than that. What about on a wind instrument like the recorder? Surely that's much easier because all you do is put your fingers over the holes and blow. Well, you might think so, but there's more to it than that, because the way you blow, the exact force you put through the instrument makes a big difference to the tone you're producing. It's also easy to actually blow a little bit flat or sharp if you're playing the recorder, especially on the higher notes where you're putting half a thumb over some of the holes and so on. So once again, on the recorder, we have to listen all the time to the note we're making, unlike on this thing. On the piano, everything's different. We can press any note or any chord safe in the knowledge that the piano is going to do most of the dirty work for us, yeah? Yes, we can affect things like the loudness or softness. Yes, we can affect the note length and the intonation to some extent. But when it actually comes to producing the sound, we're not like violinists or trombonists. We don't have to give total attention to whether or not the pitch and the quality of the note is good. And in some ways that's fantastic. It's a mercy because as piano players we have so much other stuff to think about. We've got 10 fingers to be worrying about. We can play up to 10 notes at once. We have to think about our feet on the pedals. We have to manage this huge expanse of piano keyboard. The curse is that so often we get bogged down in those things. We get so focused on making sure we're pressing the right notes that we lose track of the actual sound we're making. So you can play a piece on the piano and pat yourself on the back at the end and say, yes, I got all the notes right there. But it might have sounded pretty terrible because you weren't really listening to the actual sound that was coming out. It's a surprisingly easy trap to fall into. And in this tutorial, I'm going to show you 3 strategies for making sure you don't fall into that trap, which at the end of the day will make you a better, more confident, more listenable piano player. Here we go. Strategy number 1 is to make it a habit to listen to the whole sound that you're making on the piano. What do I mean by that? Let me give you an example. Let's say that we're working on a fairly straightforward piece of classical music. Just 8 bars from a piece called Gondolide, Gondola Song in A major by Felix Mendelssohn. If I'd made a mistake with the notes there, you would have spotted it straight away. Okay, a wrong note is a wrong note and it really, really stands out. So many piano learners make the mistake of thinking that if they're spotting wrong notes, they're doing enough listening. But you're not, okay? Wrong notes are actually relatively easy to spot and relatively easy to fix. They really stand out. But getting all the notes right isn't enough if you're going to create a really good, smooth, flowing, musical sound. For example, just have a quick listen again to the first 2 bars that I played in the left hand there. Just playing around on a chord of A major, okay, starting with that A down there and ending up here on this A chord. There's quite a lot of jumping about. I didn't play it very well there. I played it quite unevenly, yeah. This is something you really need to focus on, particularly in this kind of smooth flowing legato music. You've got to make it as even as possible, okay, because after all the piece of music is about a gondola kind of plying the lagoons of Venice. We want this kind of smooth flowing sound, and it would be really easy to be sort of kind of, you know, dum chum 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 dum bum bum dum da 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 da, really kind of clumpy and bumpy. So what you should be aiming for there is kind of smoothness and richness and evenness in the chords. You know, landing on that A chord evenly is actually really difficult, considering that you're on it so briefly, okay? You just hit it and go back down to the A. And listening out for that kind of thing is what really good pianists do, because they're aware that that's what makes the difference. Fixing wrong notes, fairly straightforward once you've basically got the piece under your fingers. The more important thing is to be listening for evenness, for good phrasing, for good control of the dynamics, yeah? So listen to the whole thing if you can. Not always easy, especially when you're focusing on getting the notes right, but as far as you can, be aware of all of the things that contribute to a good sound when you're playing the piano. Strategy number 2 is to record yourself playing. Now there are loads of ways of doing this these days. You can do it the fancy way like I do by taking a line out of your digital piano and using an app like GarageBand or Audacity, or you can just use the voice memo app on your phone, or even an old-fashioned tape recorder if you've got one. However you do it, recording yourself is really easy, because you'll remember we said in strategy 1 you need to get into the habit of listening to everything you do on the piano. Well, that's fine, but it can be pretty hard to do when you're deep in the zone of just trying to press the right note, especially if you're just starting out on the instrument. So recording yourself gets around that. Yeah, you can record what you're doing, and then although you should still try to listen while you're playing, if you've got a recording, you can then get more feedback afterwards. So I recorded a bit of what I was playing just then. Let's just listen through. And there it is, I can just listen to what I'm doing. Yeah, quite nice in the right hand there. Left hand a bit chunky, I need to work on that left hand. Yeah, not bad, getting better there. I need to make more of the crescendo there. You know, so I can kind of give myself feedback. It makes a real difference. Couple of tips about recording yourself. If you can, record yourself, but then don't always listen straight away. Leave it a few hours or leave it a day and listen back. It helps you to be more objective. Tip number 2 is that it can also be quite a good morale booster in a funny way. If you're feeling a bit down about your playing, record yourself and play it back, and you might be surprised. Often you sound better than you think you do. It's really easy to be down on yourself when you're sat there playing and thinking, oh my word, this sounds terrible. Listen to a recording and you might be pleasantly surprised. It works the other way as well. You know, sometimes you think, yeah, that was great, and you listen to the recording and really it wasn't. But it can be a good way of just giving yourself that little extra boost. So getting feedback is great. Of course, the other great way to get feedback is to have a teacher, to get a piano teacher, and to get real objective feedback. But even at home, when you're trying to practice, when you're trying to listen to yourself, making a recording makes all the difference. Strategy number 3 is to work on your ear. Having a good ear is really, really useful. It helps you to remember melodies better. It helps you to recognize intervals better. It makes reading music easier because you can kind of visualize or auralize, if you like, what music looks like just before your fingers hit the keys. It even makes improvisation a little bit easier because you can kind of predict what lines will sound like. You know, if you have a good ear, before you even play them, you can come up with ideas in your head, and it makes it a much more natural process to get them on the keyboard, rather than going through a kind of mechanical or mathematical process of improvisation where you're saying, yes, I can play this note and I can't play that one, and all the rest of it. So target your ear deliberately. How do you do that? Number 1, absolutely the best way is to join an SATB choir where you're working from written music. Why does that help? Because you're having to sing what's in front of you with other stuff going on around you at the same time, other people singing other melodies, and that is, you know, that is the equivalent of doing real sort of hardcore bench presses in the gym. Yeah, it really sharpens up your ear. If that sounds like too big a step for you, or joining a choir isn't practical for you, then there are lots of other things you can do. Singing scales really helps. Singing, I should say, is absolutely central to improving your ear. You're not going to get away with not singing, or at least not whistling or something, if you're going to improve your ear. So just singing a scale. Bum, 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 bum. As simple as that. Naming the notes, if you like. C, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Sometimes with the piano keyboard, sometimes without it. You can sing up chords. B, bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. All things like that, and there are lots of ear exercises like that you can do, are all going to help massively. There are even ear training apps on the market. You know, just look around the App Store or Google Play or whatever, and you will find ear training apps. But it's something that you need to do if you're going to compensate for this central problem we have as pianists of not kind of getting the natural ear training that lots of other musicians do. Okay, so there we go. I really hope you enjoyed that. If you did, please do consider subscribing to my YouTube channel over at youtube.com/Bill Hilton. I've got over 200 piano tutorials up there, ranging in difficulty from easy to advanced, and they're all completely free of charge. Lots of people seem to like my channel. I'm sure you will do as well. You might also be interested in some of my books, especially How to Really Play the Piano, The Stuff Your Teacher Never Taught You, which is my kind of flagship book. It's been on the market for 10 years now. Thousands of people have bought it and seem to really like it. It covers all the kind of mysterious stuff that often isn't mentioned in traditional piano lessons. So things like how to get started with chords and improvisation, playing with lead sheets, all of that kind of stuff. It's available both in print and as an ebook. Also, there's 7 studies in pop piano. If you're interested in pop piano styles, you know, the kind of thing that Elton John, Ben Folds, those guys play, then 7 studies will really help you. Again, it's available in print and as an ebook. Also, if you're interested in cocktail piano, kind of cheesy lounge piano music, you might like my ebook, An Introduction to Cocktail Piano. All of that stuff you can find out more about over on my channel at youtube.com/Bill Hilton. So it only remains for me to say big thanks to Making Music Magazine for hosting me today. I'll see you again soon. Happy piano playing. And remember to listen. Always remember to listen. See you again.